Hello, everyone, and welcome from wherever you are and whenever you are. So, wow, Australia, Venezuela, Brazil, Argentina, Ethiopia. So in Ethiopia, if I'm not mistaken, it's midnight, and Indonesia, I think it's 4 a.m. Australia, I think you're just waking up. So welcome. It's great to have you here from Mexico, US, wow, Hungary, all over the world. So here's what we're going to do today. So I'd like to share with you more about the Certificate in Happiness Studies. We'll get to that in a few minutes. We also have Yuval Kutz, who is the president of the Happiness Studies Academy, who will join us in a few minutes to answer questions, any question that you have, whether it's about the Certificate in Happiness Studies, whether it's about happiness, whether it's about whatever I'm going to be talking about right now. And what I want to talk about today, you know, every time we have these webinars, I talk about something, an idea. Today, I want to go back to why I started in this field of happiness studies. Why? Because when I was a sophomore, a second year in college, I switched my major from being a computer scientist to philosophy and psychology. The reason was because I wasn't happy, and I wanted to understand why. And the first, or one of the first insights that I read about in the psychological literature was an insight that helped me a great deal, and I must say still helps me today find more happiness in my life. And specifically, that insight, which I want to share with you, is the relationship between success and happiness. You see, most people live under the assumption, and according to the assumption, that the way to happiness is through success. That if you achieve this milestone, if you reach this goal, if you climb up this mountain, if you get this amount of money or these amount of likes or accolades, then you'll be happy. That your happiness, in other words, is contingent on, is dependent on how successful you are. And I must say, that's what I believed for years. And then I became disillusioned because I played professional squash, did very well there. I got into a top university, did very well there. I had an okay social life, and I was miserable. And it didn't make sense to me because I had checked the boxes, or so I thought, that were needed in order to become happy. But you see, what we know, what most of us know from personal experience, and what we know from research today, is that success does not lead to happiness. And I want to share with you one study, one very important study conducted by one of my teachers, Professor Daniel Gilbert. And what he did was he went to professors at the most important part of their academic career. What's the most important point in their academic career? It's when they hear whether or not they receive tenure. In other words, when they hear from the university, you have lifetime employment or you're out. In other words, fired. So in every professor's career, there is that point where you hear you're up or out. So he asked them the following question, just before they were about to hear from the university about the verdict. He asked them, so how are you going to feel if you do get tenure? And the response, just about unanimously, was, I'm going to be ecstatic, happier than I'd ever been before. This is a dream come true for me. I'd been working towards this for 15 years or so. And he said, fantastic. How long do you think you'll be happy for if you do get tenure? And they said, well, this is a life changer. This is going to make it all the difference in the world because I no longer have to be stressed over publishing and I can relax and it's a dream come true. I'm going to be happy for the rest of my life. And then he asked them another question. He said, what if you don't get tenure? How are you going to feel? In other words, if the university is going to fire you. And the response was, of course, devastated, awful, extremely unhappy. And then he said, how long for? They said, well, for a very long time, maybe for the rest of our lives, because, this is my dream. This is what I want to achieve, what I wanted to achieve all along. For the last 15 years, this is what I've been working towards. A dream shattered. And then he went to them on the day when they actually heard. Some heard yes, other heard no. Tenure or fired. Those who got tenured were ecstatic, happier for some of them than they'd ever been before, as they predicted. Those who were denied tenure, who heard a no, who were fired, were devastated. One of the, if not the worst day of their lives, as they predicted. But then he went to them 3 to 6 months later. And what Professor Gilbert found was that they all, almost with no exception, returned to where they were before the tenure decision. In other words, those who received tenure, were ecstatic when they got it, but very quickly went back to where they were before. It ended up just being a spike, a temporary increase in their happiness levels. Those who didn't get tenure, were devastated. One of the worst days of their lives, but very quickly they bounced back to where they were before. In other words, the success or the failure had only a temporary effect, an ephemeral impact on their levels of happiness. Success does not lead to happiness, certainly not in the long run. Now, the question is, so is there no relationship between success and happiness? And the answer is, there is. And there is a very strong relationship between these two variables. Only it's the opposite of what most people think. It's not that success leads to happiness. It's rather that happiness leads to success. And yet, most people, most of the time, live their lives as if the way to happiness is through to success. Most parents raise their children based on the assumption that those children, if they become successful, if they get into their top choice college, if they make a lot of money in the future, then they'll be happy. It simply doesn't work. On the other hand, success does lead to happiness does lead to more success, because if you increase your happiness levels even by a little bit, then you become more productive and more creative, more innovative. You become physically healthier. You become better at your work. You have better relationships. You live longer. Every parameter that you look at, you increase levels of well-being, and you live a better life, healthier, more successful life. So the relationship is the opposite of what most people think. Now, the reason why it is important to understand, and not just for theoretical reasons or because it's interesting, the reason why it's so important to understand this relationship is because it very often defines how we live our life. And I want to give you an example. It's an imaginary one, but it's actually quite common. So imagine this. Imagine a young man going off to Hollywood. He really wants to make something of his life. He wants to become a movie star. He goes to Hollywood, and initially he gets no callbacks in his when he does get auditions. And so he works as a waiter in a restaurant. He's really unhappy. He's miserable. However, he's sustained by his goal, by his ambition, by his belief that when he becomes a movie star, then he'll be happy and it will all be worth it. And he struggles and he suffers and he's miserable for 5 years. Still no callbacks. 10 years go by. He gets an audition, goes through it, and he gets the role. He plays in a movie and he becomes an overnight sensation. Overnight, he becomes extremely wealthy, more money than he knows what to do with. He buys his dream car, a beautiful house on the hills of Hollywood. He suddenly sought after. He became so desirable. Every woman or man wants him. All his dreams, his fantasies have come true, and he's happier than he'd ever been before. It was all worth it, he thinks. But then a year goes by, and the unhappiness begins to creep back in. That high that he experienced doesn't last. It's not sustained. And he goes back to where he was before. And he's unhappy and he's miserable. Even more so than he was before his success. Why? Because at least before, he had the hope. He had the illusion that when he makes it, then he'll be happy. He was pulled, sustained by this belief that he no longer has because he's become disillusioned. And he says to himself, so I cannot find happiness in reality. And he begins to look for it outside of reality. What's outside of reality? Outside of reality is in drugs. That's running away from reality. Or alcohol, another form of running away from reality. Or the ultimate exit from reality, suicide. It is no coincidence that among the rich and famous and successful, we see so many disproportionate number of suicides, alcohol addiction, and drug addiction. Because they, like most people in the world, truly believe that the path to happiness is through success. Only they've really made it. And they no longer have the illusion that one day when they become successful or more successful, then they'll be happy. And you know what the difference is between sadness and depression? The difference is that depression is sadness without hope. We all experience sadness, disappointment, frustration, anxiety. These are natural human emotions. But they become chronic. They become stronger. They become more oppressive when we no longer believe that that too shall pass, when we lose our hope. And that is what highly successful, the most successful, in fact, people very often have to deal with, because they've made it there, but they realize when they get there that there is no there. Success doesn't lead to happiness. Happiness leads to success. When I realized this, when I understood this, when I saw the research and saw it in my life as well, that's when I started my pursuit of happiness. Learning what it is, what psychologists call the antecedents, what are the conditions that we need to put in place in our life in order to become happier. Why? Because happiness is good in and of itself. We all want to be happier. And also because happiness has side effects, byproducts, such as more success, such as more creativity and innovation, such as better ability to work with others, to be with others, such as better health and longevity, and overall success. So happiness is good in and of itself and as a means towards other ends. And the reason why more and more organizations are becoming interested in happiness, in their employees' happiness, is because they want them to feel better, sure, and because they know they'll have better employees if they increase their levels of well-being. And schools are interested in it because they want happier students, and because they know that happier students are also healthier. And there are better students. They think better. They work together better. But how to increase happiness? That is the question that we delve into very deeply in our certificate in happiness studies. How we do it, what we do, I'm going to show you a video now of Yuval Kutz, the president of the Happiness Studies Academy, talking about what this journey actually looks like towards increasing levels of happiness, and through that, gaining all the benefits that come with it, helping ourselves and learning to help others become happier. So here is Yuval Kutz talking about the certificate in happiness studies.
Hi everyone. The Certificate in Happiness Studies is a year-long program. The program is offered in English, Spanish, Portuguese, Japanese, Chinese, and Hebrew. It is composed of 2 parts, both about the same length. The first is called Introduction to Happiness Studies, and the second is called Facilitating Happiness. While the first part focuses on theory, although it has some practice in it, the second part relies more about applied techniques, although it has some theory in it. This is an interdisciplinary journey in which we will learn the relationship between not just positive psychology, but also literature, art, science, and other fields related to happiness. The entire program has a weekly structure with the following components. First of all students in the same cohort starts off at the same day. And every week you receive access to 4 15 minutes pre-recorded lectures. Altogether, 1 hour. All of the lectures are delivered by Dr. Ben-Shahar. You can watch these lectures at your convenience. It's online, and they will always be available for you to go back and watch again. Every week, students are invited to join a 1-hour live webinar with Tal, in which they can discuss happiness, the topics of the course, and their personal lives directly with Tal. Last but not least, all students get access to their personal life journal. The life journal is a weekly follow-up to the lessons with additional exercises, extra readings, videos, journaling, meditations, yoga, and much more. You get lifetime access to this life journal, which holds the most comprehensive bibliography of research and material about happiness out there today. Actually, you're getting lifetime access to us as well. As HSA alums, you will get your Certified Happiness Trainer certificate, invitations to our annual gatherings, support from HSA faculty and the entire community. It is extremely important for us to give you all the tools needed to pursue a career and work in this field. I would like to thank you for taking the time today and for the interest you're showing in this program.
Thank you, Yuval, for the video. And now I would like to invite you live. Welcome.
Hi, Tal. Welcome. Thank you all for coming. Always embarrassing to see yourself on video. You should try that. We are here to take all of your questions now regarding any topic you want to talk about. Either it's happiness, anything you want to ask Tal, or you have questions about the upcoming certificate. The next cohort is February 1, so that's about 3 weeks from now. And if you want to ask a question, you can raise your hand. You can find that under reactions on the bottom of the screen and use the gesture of hand. And you can ask Tal any question you like. You can also write your questions in the chat. Not sure I understand the first question I see here. What about English certificate? Okay.
How is the course assessed? Is there only one cohort a year? No, there are 3 cohorts a year, the February, June, and October. We are trying at each of those months to have the cohort starting at the first, as close to the first day of the month as possible. And it is not assessed. You have your own. You're assessing yourself. You have your own assignments, homework, exercises that you will go through. So you will not be assessed with the certificate program. We do have a master's degree where the answer is completely different, of course. How do you want to take a hand? And I will go through the question and then I will.
Sure. So Abraham, can you unmute yourself, please? Abraham, you have your hand up. No?
No.
You need to unmute yourself. Okay. Why don't we take a question from the chat, and we'll go back to the hands.
Thanks for all the information. How large are the cohorts? Well, it varies. The cohorts are between 100 to 150 students. And the live webinars with Tal every week for about an hour and a half holds about 100 people. We have also the get-togethers and the live in-person meetings and retreats. So about every month, Tal is meeting about 15 to 20 students wherever he travels around the world, because our students are coming from more than 75 countries now. And we're having twice a year an even bigger in-person event for a few days. Last one was in Acumal, Mexico. Next one is in Lake Como, Italy, happening 2 months from now. At those events, we have between 50 to 100 people joining us.
I can say something about that, Yuval. So just last night, I had one of those meetings. This time, second time, it was in my neck of the woods. So we had it in New Jersey. We had a dozen people attend, and we had a lovely, dinner together and chat, and at my favorite restaurant. Last month or the month before, we were in Acumal. This was a bigger event, a retreat. Then that same month, we met in Madrid and in France and in Miami. So we have these retreats all over, and I want to share with you our thinking behind those retreats. So when Yuval and I and the other founders of the Happiness Studies Academy, right at the beginning, we're talking about our approach. We debated, frankly, whether to have an online institute, or should it be all offline, or should it be some hybrid model, online and offline? Because there are advantages and disadvantages to all of them. The advantages to an offline certificate program or degree are obvious. It's better to be in the same room, to have closer interactions, to play in the same sandbox together. There are certainly advantages to in-person events, educational experiences, and so on. At the same time, 90% of our students would not have attended if we had it offline. So there's a real, and by the way, all this thinking came before COVID. COVID made it even more extreme. But 90% or more of our students would not be able to come to New York or New Jersey, which is where I'm from. So that would have been a problem. So we decided to go offline, not hybrid, because hybrid would also be more expensive if people would have to travel far for the certificate. So we did what we did, 100% online, but we didn't want to forego the advantages that come with in-person interactions. And there are many advantages to that, which is why we created those retreats, those get-togethers. And we have them around the world. I travel a lot, and almost wherever I go, I have a meeting, and these are intimate meetings. Again, yesterday was in 12. In Toronto, we had 7, I think. In Madrid, we had, we had 10. So these are in Akumal, where it was a bigger meeting. We had, closer to 80, but that was a 3-day retreat. But we have all these meetings, all these retreats, all these interactions, so that we can hang out together in the same sandbox, so that we can learn from each other, so that we can have, deep, intimate conversations with each other, so we can gain all the benefits of an in-person experience. Now, if you want to attend 3 of them a year, great. If you don't want to attend any, that's fine too. The certificate, getting the certificate, or the master's degree for that matter, is not contingent on those retreats. They're just a boon, a bonus for us, because we love them, and for our students, or as we call them, our fellow journeyers. The best of both worlds. We feel having those retreats and having a 100% online experience that's accessible to people from around the world.
Now we have many questions in the chat, and no hands up, so we'll take the questions from the chat.
Let's go.
They're quite, some of the questions are quite straightforward, so we'll take those. There's a question about Spanish. Then yes, the course is delivered in English and is delivered also in Spanish, Portuguese, Chinese, Japanese, and Hebrew. And this is to one of the questions is where I am from. I am from Israel. Hence, Hebrew is first time that I really understand the course. So that's why we translated it as well. So that's about the language, and it's translated into Spanish fully, meaning Tal speaks English, but it is subtitled to Spanish, and even the live sessions are simultaneously translated into Spanish. Thank you, Tal. So this is regarding the languages. Tal, there was a question about if you could recommend 3 books, what would they be, or 3 authors, who will they be?
Right.
So if you want to take one, and I will continue.
So I'm going to write this in the chat. So the first one, a book that really changed my life, is by Nathaniel Branden, The 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem. This is one for personal happiness, well-being, self-esteem, of course, important, great for parents, great for managers, one of the greatest books in psychology to my mind. A second one, if you're in a relationship, long-term relationship, again, whether it's marriage or not, it doesn't matter. It's a book by David Schnarch called Passionate Marriage. It's an amazing book for relationships in general. I must say it also helped me think about my deep friendships and what I was looking for. And we know that the #1 predictor of happiness is relationships. So that's an important book for happiness. The third one, this is for those of you interested in leadership or parenting or coaching or therapy. Management. This is a book by Marva Collins, who's a school teacher, and it's called The Marva Collins Way. It's essentially an autobiography. So this is the third one. One of the problems, so to speak, in the certificate is that you'll get many recommendations for books, for articles, but the nice thing is, as you've all mentioned in the video, this is a lifelong journey. So it's not like you're coming in and within a year you have to complete everything. You're a part of the community for as long as you want. So you'll have plenty of recommended books from myself, from others in the community.
Yes, we will record this session and we will send it later, the question that was asked. And live webinars are happening every Thursday. Tal, you want to say the hours? They vary a little bit, but usually it's on in the same hours.
Yeah, so it's on a Thursday, and it's either at 8, I'm talking about Eastern Standard Time, so New York time, either 8 a.m. or 2 p.m. And the reason why we have these 2 different hours is so that we can, for at least one of the 2 weeks, you're on the time zone. Now, if you're in Europe or the Americas, North and South America, you can potentially attend both. If you are, in Australia, Indonesia, one of them will be more difficult than the other, but hopefully at least one of them will be suitable. They're 1.5 hours long. We started them as 1 hour, but there are many questions and many sharings, and I must say for me they're very moving and meaningful experiences where we get to talk about the content and more.
Before you take the hand up, one question that repeats itself and maybe you want to elaborate about is, what kind of career path can I take after taking this course? What kind of line of work can I take? Do you have examples from alums that are already doing that?
Yes, I do. And Yuval, I think you can, if you don't mind adding to what I say, because you're probably more than me in touch with a lot of, or as much as I'm in touch with our students and grads. So here is the thing, so I talked about the relationship between success and happiness. And success doesn't lead to happiness, but happiness leads to more success. And specifically, as I mentioned, you increase levels of happiness even by a little bit, even by 2, 3, 4%, not a lot, very doable. What you find is that you become more creative, that you become more productive, that you become better able to deal with other people, better in teamwork. Now, all these things are relevant for just about every profession. If you're a manager or working in a business, of course you want more creativity and innovation, especially today when so much which is not creative and not innovative can be done by machines. If you are a teacher, you'll benefit a great deal by increasing your students' levels of well-being, because they'll become better students, they'll become more engaged, they will become more creative, not to mention healthier. If you're a parent and you want to raise healthier families, it's relevant for you. Coaches and therapists, we have many of them. Why? Because they become better coaches and they become better therapists when they implement, when they use these the ideas that they receive. We have lawyers, we have doctors who are implementing these ideas in their practices, in their hospitals, because we talk a lot about the mind-body connection. And now how, if the mind is healthier, you're happier, you're also going to be healing faster, sooner, better. So there are numerous benefits, and these benefits translate into just about every profession. There are explicit, there are professions like the chief happiness officer, who's charged with increasing levels of well-being in the organization. There are workshop facilitators, teachers. There are so many different professions that you can pursue as a result or with the knowledge and abilities that you gain in this certificate. And
we have it. We have in the course, of course, we have coaches and educators of all sorts, teachers and social workers and HR managers and the CEOs and lawyers and doctors and medical doctors and people who want to change the cultural environment within the organization or want to work as such, all of the above. And yes, to the specific question about chief happiness officer, there definitely this is exactly what the certificate will allow you to do. So that's about the career path. And we have specific examples from our alums, all sorts, and even in strange locations. I would say we have. I'll give you one example. We have a travel agent who started arranging trips around the world around the SPIRE elements, and I will explain. The SPIRE elements is the methodology that we teach happiness through. SPIRE is an acronym standing for spiritual, physical, intellectual, relational, and emotional well-being. And we talk about the interconnectedness of all of those aspects, and we drill down to each of those aspects. Tal, maybe you want to elaborate a little bit about those aspects, and
Sure.
so they know a little bit, to have a taste of what will be taught.
Right. So the way we define happiness, and again, there are many definitions. The way we define it is happiness as comprising the 5 SPIRE elements. SPIRE is an acronym that stands for spiritual well-being, physical well-being, intellectual well-being, relational well-being, that's the R, and finally, emotional well-being. I'll say just a few words about each one of them. So spiritual well-being can, of course, come from religion, but it doesn't have to. It can come from a deep sense of meaning in life. It can come from being present in the here and now. So when I'm present to a plant or to a friend sitting across the table from me, I'm experiencing the spiritual in life, experiencing spiritual well-being. Or when I do something meaningful at work, contribute in a meaningful way, then that's spiritual well-being. Then there is physical well-being. That's about the NEST model. NEST is nutrition, exercise, sleep, and touch. And there's a lot of research showing how all these 4 elements are important. For example, regular physical exercise, 30 minutes 3 times a week, has the same effect on our psychological well-being as our most powerful psychiatric medication. In fact, it works in the same way. It releases norepinephrine, serotonin, dopamine. So we talk about this, but then more importantly, we commit to more exercise or to healthier eating or to more rest and relaxation that are important elements of happiness. So that's the P of SPIRE, physical well-being. Then we have intellectual well-being, which is about curiosity. It's about asking questions. It's about learning. It turns out that curiosity doesn't just help us become more successful. It doesn't just help us become happier. It also helps us live longer. So whereas curiosity kills the cat, it helps humans live longer. So that's intellectual well-being. Then relational well-being, the R of SPIRE. Number 1 predictor of happiness, quality time we spend with people we care about and who care about us. Relational well-being is about kindness, generosity, and how that doesn't just contribute to the well-being of the world, it also contributes to us. And the E of SPIRE, emotional well-being, and that's about embracing, accepting, not rejecting. Painful emotions is natural, part and parcel of every life. And then also cultivating pleasurable emotions like gratitude, like joy. So these are the SPIRE elements that we really delve into deeply on a few levels. First of all, theoretically, to understand it, to look at the research, the science behind it. And second, most importantly, so how can we apply it in our lives? How can we apply it in the lives of others? In other words, how can we help ourselves become happier? And how can we help others do the same?
Now, maybe you'll take a hand now.
Yes. So, Abraham, your hand is up again. You just need to unmute yourself, please. Good.
I think I've unmuted myself now.
Loud
All right,
and
great.
clear. Yes.
Okay. Personally, I think I haven't been a happy person for a very long time in my life, and I'm so excited to be here right now. But I'm also considering the financial implication of being part of the whole movement is beautiful. I really wish to be a part of it, but I don't know if there is a kind of scholarship, because I noticed there's a certain amount of fee that is attached to acquiring the certificate and all of that. So I don't know if there's any room for scholarship or something, because not everybody is not on the same page right now, and financial things are kind of like rough. But I really wish to be part of this.
Yuval, do you want to respond to this, or you were reading the chat?
Questions, yeah.
Yeah. So right now, Abraham was asking about scholarships. So right now we do not have a scholarship. We may hopefully have them in the future. Do you want to add to that?
Not in a formal way, but we do allow some scholarships sometimes in different cases. Abraham, you can write to info@happinessstudies.academy and we'll take it from there. info@happinessstudies.academy. Actually, you can use that email for any of you can use that email for any of your questions. And for sure we'll not be able to answer all of the questions here today. So maybe we'll take another hand.
Yeah, Humberto.
Hello, nice to meet you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak and ask some questions. I'd like to know if this course is an introductory course or it's a seed that you're going to plant. We're going to follow this for our life.
So what was the first? I heard the seed, but what was the first option?
It's an introductory course.
So the course is a year-long course, but it's actually a lifelong course. Meaning, if you want, you have lectures that you watch and you have readings that you do every week. But in addition to that, you have live webinars, and the live webinars don't end after a year. You can be part of those live webinars 10 years from now, if you want, as long as we have them. Now, the other thing is that when we provide the material, we have what we call the GEM Plus and the GEM Plus Plus. The GEM is good enough mark, and that would be maybe, an hour or two a week of reading. But then if you want to go to the GEM Plus, the good enough mark plus, then you have readings for 8 hours a week. But if you want to go above that, we have the GEM Plus Plus, and then you'd basically be 24/7 reading and watching videos and studying the material, which means that what we have, the material that we offer, you can go over in a year. You're unlikely to go over everything in a year, but you have enough material there for years and years of interaction. Not only that, we create new material all the time. Whether it's new webinars, there are new every week, whether it's new content that you will be exposed to, whether it's more interactions with the Happiness Studies Academy Alumni and Business Club, who bring speakers over regularly. And we bring speakers over regularly that you get to interact with, ask questions, hear them speak about a variety of topics related to happiness. We had people talk about nutrition. We had someone talk about the relationship between money and happiness. We had someone talk about personality psychology and your projects and their relationship to happiness. So we have different people come so that we can create a community that is there for you for your entire life. So this is not just a one-off, a 3-day work. I wish this could be done in a 3-day workshop. I really do. But happiness is a lifelong journey, and we're always learning and potentially always growing.
That brings me, Tal, to a question that is repeating about the structure and timing of the course and the price of the course. So it is a 1-year-long program. And as Tal mentioned, this is not really a 1-year program, because in 1 year, you will go through the materials on a weekly structure. Every week, you'll get access to more materials of that week, etc., and you will attend the live webinars, etc. Having said that, after that 1 week is over, 1 year is over, you will keep getting invites to the weekly live webinars with Tal for Life. And you will keep attending our get-togethers and in-person meetings. And you will be a part of the Alumni and Business Club and all of those activities. This is, once you get into HSA, you work with us for as long as you want. You decide. The price of the course is $3,900 US. You can divide that into 10 equal payments. On our website, you have two forms. One is for 1 payment and one is for 10 payments. During this webinar, we allow the participants of this webinar a special discount of $500. If you use the code, if you go to our website and go to the form, you can use a coupon code there. Then the coupon code you should use is live webinar, all capital letters. If you use that, you get $500 discount. So that's the length of the course, the price, and the time. Yes, Tom.
Yuval, I want to just respond to two questions that I saw. So one is from Judith about, can I use this material when I teach or when I work with students? And Judith is a K through 8 counselor. The answer is absolutely yes. We would not be creating all this material, would not be going through, this, difficult process of, putting it online, if we didn't think that you could use it in your world. So our material is open for you. We also try to make it as easy as possible for you, in terms of packaging some of the material, in terms of helping you one-on-one when necessary to create material. One of the things that happens even today, today we had the webinar at 2 p.m. my time, Eastern Standard. One of the participants asked about a workshop that she was building and what to include in that workshop. So and then what happens is, I give my 2 cents and help, but then the whole community, because you have so many experts in this community that can help and who have given maybe a similar workshop and can send you their material, and you can build on that, and then you can share it with others. So it's a very collaborative community where we all, and I say we because I do too, learn so much from one another. But the short answer is absolutely, we want you to use this material. That's why we created it.
Amazing, thank you.
Thank you. And then the other question,
thing, throughout the course, it's not just a community. We are actually working together with mentors. So when you join the certificate, you get one of the graduates as a mentor assigned to you. If you like, by the way, you don't have to. And with that mentor, with a group of 3 to 4 people, you work together and they help you through the materials of the course. Tal, you want to take another hand?
Sure, Eric.
Hello, Mr. Ben-Shahar. I hope that you hear me well.
Very well.
Yeah, it's good to see you again. I was your student about 15 years ago. Yeah, I'm at Harvard. But I just want to mention that for your example regarding getting tenureships, I got tenureships in the Technion in Haifa. And I just got depressed because I couldn't see, only then I could see, what am I facing, and it really got me depressed, but that's beside the point. One thing that I noticed from all my interactions with happiness is that a lot is being taught and talked about what is happiness, and about 10%, if any, about how do you get there. So I just wonder, in that certificate program that you're offering, if there is any difference.
Yeah, that's a very good question. And the answer is yes, very much so. And here is why. My interest in the field of happiness is primarily to bring about change. Initially, it was selfish to bring about change in my life. Today, it's about bringing about change in other people's lives, whether it's in individuals, in relationships, in schools, in organizations, and in nations. That's what we focus on. So the only reason, and I mean this, the only reason why we do teach what is happiness, why we do teach the theory of it, is because it can help or is needed for the more important part, which is how do you bring it about? How do you increase it? How do you spread it? If the only conversation around happiness was theoretical, what is happiness? I wouldn't go into this field, not interesting. What is interesting for me, and again, it may be interesting for other people, and that's fine, and that's great, and they do important work. But for us, in the Happiness Studies Academy, we care about impact. That's how we measure our success. And by the way, that is also what generates happiness for us, when we see the impact on our students, and not only that, on our students, or clients, or colleagues. So Yuval mentioned in the video that there are two courses that make up the certificate program. The first one is Introduction to Happiness Studies. The second one is Facilitating Happiness. So the first course, Introduction to Happiness, has theory in it, as Yuval mentioned. So we talk about the SPIRE model. What is it? We define happiness clearly as whole person well-being. We bring in the theory of Aristotle and Helen Keller and Lao Tzu. However, all in the service, in that first course of, okay, so what can you do with it? How is what Lao Tzu said, 2,500 years ago relevant to your life today? How can it help you deal with sadness when you experience it? And Lao Tzu has a lot to say about that. So that's the first course, some theory and a lot of practice. The second course is Facilitating Happiness. That's almost just practice. Yeah, there is some theory in there, but it's basically about how can you introduce certain interventions in your personal life, in your professional life, in yourself, in others. So I would say that even the theory that we have is all so that we can be better when it comes to practice. Thank you for the question, Eric, because it's a very important distinction that we make about what we have to offer. It's practical value.
Thank you, Tal.
Thank you.
Thank you. Will you translate it to Russian or Ukraine? Well, actually, this is the next language on our list. So we just started working on that. So hopefully we'll have announcement soon with that, but not yet. It's not in Russian yet. What is the difference between the certificate and the MA? That's an important question. The certificate actually is a derivative of the MA. The MA is comprised of 8 courses. It is taken through a period of 20 months. 2 of those 8 courses are within the certificate. Those are the Introduction to Happiness Studies and Facilitating Happiness courses that Tal just mentioned. Once you take them through the certificate, you take them slower in a different pace, and you don't get graded for them. With the MA, you do. So the MA it has way more courses. It digs deeper into the interdisciplinary subject of happiness, with courses about integrative leaders and courses about literature and film and others. So that's the difference between the MA and the certificate. There's also, of course, a difference in pricing. While the certificate costs $3,900 US, the MA costs $17,700. And this is a fully accredited, fully online master's degree. Actually, it's the first of its kind in the world in the field of happiness studies. So the certificate is a derivative of that. Tal, how the notions and ideas in the course resemble the ideas of Buddha regarding happiness?
So let me just very briefly talk about the field of happiness studies in general and how it's different from, say, positive psychology, because Yuval mentioned that the master's degree is the first master's degree in the world in happiness studies. But then there have been master's degrees, there are master's degrees in positive psychology. So how is it different? It's different because happiness studies looks at well-being through an interdisciplinary lens. So yes, it looks at what psychologists have to say, and it also looks at what philosophers and theologians have to say. It looks at what the Buddha has to say and what he can teach us and what Aristotle can teach us and what Chinua Achebe, Nobel Prize winning author, can teach us. And what we can learn from literature and film and neuroscience and biology. So it's an interdisciplinary approach. So yes, we do look at what the Buddha has to say and what we can learn from his words. For example, where he talks about the inevitability or the pervasiveness, rather, of suffering. And then we ask, so how can we deal with it? And then we look at the research on meditation, connecting ancient with modern, looking at what happens to our brain, and also looking at what Patanjali says about presence and yoga. So we integrate the wisdom from east, west, north, and south. We integrate wisdom from the past with the present.
There was a question about the certificate and the MA and a few questions like that. I want to clarify that. You can take the certificate, finish the certificate, be a graduate of the certificate, and then move on to the MA. Once you move on to the MA, you don't pay twice. Everything that you paid for the certificate will be deducted from the price you will pay for the MA. You will need to submit some papers in order to be graded for the courses you did in the certificate. But it will be way easier for you to go through the MA once you did the certificate, and you will not need to do those courses, all of the materials in those courses all over again. So that's the relationship. And yes, of course, the certificate is not a prerequisite for the MA. You can go directly and start the MA. You can, on our website, www.happinessstudies.academy, you will find all the information both about the certificate and the MA. The certificate page, you can directly enroll. And for the MA, you can apply. For the MA, all you need to do to apply for the MA, to get accepted to the MA, you need a bachelor's degree. And if you're a foreign student, you'll need to also go through a TOEFL exam, making sure that your English is sufficient in order to go through a accredited US master's degree. So I hope that clears the certificate and the MA. You can take either the certificate, you can take directly the MA, directly the certificate, you can move on from the certificate to the MA. Nothing is redundant. Everything is taken care of.
And what's important to point out is that you are part of the community, whether it's the retreats or the live webinars that go on, whether you take the master's or the MA or both.
The same community. It's the same unified community. There was a question about research that I passed, and everything that we teach is, maybe Talia will take it. Everything is research based, of course.
Yes. So, the question is, do we have research about graduates? So we are conducting research right now to see the impact of the program. I must say that, and we'll of course share the results. The more important thing is that everything that we teach is evidence-based, is scientific. So when we have an intervention, when you're taught an intervention, you of course, first of all, practice it on yourself. This is an intervention that has been tested and retested. All of our, going back to Eric's question about practice versus theory, all the practices that we introduce are ones that have been tried and tested in the lab, in the world, and you can apply them if you're a coach, you can apply them if you're a therapist, and you can apply them if you're a manager or a parent. Just as an aside, I think this was maybe 10 years ago, I was asked to give a keynote at the ICF convention. ICF is the International Coach Federation convention, and I spoke to a large group of coaches and master coaches. And the way I started this lecture was I said that the future of coaching depends on whether or not it ties itself to the science of well-being. Because if it doesn't, then it becomes another self-help or new age intervention. But if it ties itself to science, to research, to evidence-based interventions, then you have a whole different story. Then it's something that will not just have an effect on people, it will also last. You know, one of the questions that I often ask when I have when I speak to a live audience is I ask them to put their hand up, the audience, if they've taken a course in mathematics. And of course, everyone puts their hand up. And then I ask them, okay, now put your hand up if you've taken a course in writing. Everyone puts their hand up. How about geography? Almost everyone puts their hand up. How about parenting? Hardly anyone. How about relationships? Hardly anyone. And it's very unfortunate because for most people, parenting, relationships are the most important elements or among the most important elements in their lives. And yet, why aren't we taught these things? Especially today when we have a science of well-being. And that is what we introduce our students, our fellow journeyers to, the science of well-being, so that they can apply it to relationships, to parenting, so that they can apply it to the workplace, to their coaching, and so on.
Okay, Tal, I think we've answered pretty much all of the questions, although a few still coming in. So, but I think we're okay. I think it's been 1 hour, very pleasure one.
If you have any more questions, please email us. We're at info@happinessstudies.academy, whether it's questions about the certificate, about the master's, general questions about happiness. And we very much hope that you will join us in our journey, join this wonderful, really wonderful and an inspiring community of like-minded, like-hearted individuals. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
You can unmute yourself.